So talk to me about how psychedelics differ in getting to the root cause versus typical pharmaceuticals that are and self-proclaiming to kind of mask the issue, right? It's like if you had pain and you take a painkiller, it's numbing the pain in that it's not taking away the thing that's causing the pain. So if you had a sliver and you take a painkiller, it'll take the pain away, but you're not actually pulling the sliver out. So that's the difference that we're kind of talking about here. And psychedelics is an interesting field in that there's a lot of different medicines that fall into that category, and they differ in how they treat the body and what's going on. So take that anywhere you want. 28 questions in there.
Yes, which is great. So I take...
Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I'm super glad that you're here with us today because I'm here with my most amazing guest, Peggy. Peggy, thank you so much for being here today.
No, thank you so much, Michelle, for the invitation. Very, very excited about our conversation.
Awesome. So give us a highlight of who you are and a quick introduction to your business. What do you do?
Yes, thank you. So I'm sure everyone can hear I'm from France originally. Still, I've been in Canada 20 years. I am actually a former banker, so a former big corporation, like I'm sure a lot of you. Usually entrepreneurs also have a corporate past life. Until very recently, I was focusing on fintech investments. So I was an advisor to large investment funds for everything related to fintech. And more recently, I started changing my career and becoming more interested in things maybe a bit less hard than finance. And when I say hard, I mean things less very physical and tangible. And I'm spending more and more times now working with companies on mental health issues, personal transformation, and also helping people, really looking at how they can run their business in a most authentic way.
Nice. I love that. So what made you decide to go from financial tech to personality training? That seems like a huge leap.
It is a huge leap. At the same time, I basically use my own personal experience. So it's been, 10, 15 years that I've been actively working on my own personal transformation. And as much as I always loved finance, technology, the intellectual challenges, I don't think I went into that industry for the right reason. And the more I worked on myself, my own healing, the more I realized that I think my authentic self is not someone who's working with large financial institutions. So actually my business is a reflection of myself. And now I think we are, my authentic self and my business, confident enough to embrace what we want versus what we should do.
I love it. So who do you serve and support now? Who are typically the clients that you're going in to work with?
Yeah, so it's a different type of clients. So you have corporations that are interested in having a conversation more on authenticity. And I do a lot of public speaking, authenticity. I've also been, I would say in the last 6-9 months, speaking a lot about psychedelics. And microdosing psychedelics, because it has really, really helped me with my mental health, anxiety, depression, stress. So it's funny because I've been speaking to the most unlikely organization, meaning very traditional organization, about psychedelics.
Wow, how does that go over?
Well, you'd be surprised. The people who you expect to be the least interested are actually the most aware of what's going on. There is still, unfortunately, quite a bit of a stigma. So I have a lot of questions that come after the sessions, asking me, okay, can you give me a recommendation on products? Can you give me recommendations on, your regimen, potential therapist, things like that. So it's very fulfilling.
It's almost like you need a little wall to hide behind so that people can ask you the questions they really want to without their bosses.
Yes, well, and also I think there is a bit of, we're told in the business world, fake it till you make it. no one wants to show vulnerability. So if you start asking a lot of questions, people are going to start thinking, oh, that guy or that girl is very interested. Is there something behind? You know what I mean? We don't want to open that type of kimono, you know, not in the context of business, maybe with our friends, and even that, not so much. You really, really need to be confident that it's not going to backlash.
Right.
And that's been very interesting to see how much fear runs our life.
Absolutely, it does. Well, and I would think that high stress jobs like stock trading and things like that, they would be even more interested in it because their need and ability to be able to bring down anxiety during stressful situations is paramount to the job.
Yes, and you know, it's two things when you microdose psychedelics is that it helps, you know, with this mental health and really anxiety, but it also helps a lot with performance and focus.
Mm-hmm.
So you get both aspects of that. One thing that's funny, I don't know, 10 years ago, I was still working in a large financial institutions, and my doctor was one in this big tower. So I was working at BMO at the time, and actually our office was downstairs. But all the towers in Toronto are connected. So, you know, like everyone you're walking with is a BMO, TD, Scotia, you know, it's just that. And so I go to the doctor who must see 95% bankers, you know, every day.
Right.
And I used to have debilitating blushing. I was blushing constantly, which was extremely painful, as you can imagine, in business situation, because you're talking and you're blushing constantly. And that lovely doctor, a young lady, she's like, well, if you want, I was not going for that, but she said, if you want, because she sees me blushing talking to her, and she's like, I can give you something for the blushing, some blockants, you know, for her. And I was just like, no, I'm not big with taking medications. I like better thinking about how do I solve the root cause problem that makes me blush versus the symptom of blushing. And she told me, she said, you'd be surprised by the number of people you're working with who are taking this type of medication. So people are actually heavily medicated.
Oh, yeah.
Anxiety, stress, blushing, whatever, which I think it's not necessarily bad in the sense that it might solve a challenge at some point, but you're never solving the issue.
Right.
While psychedelics, that rewire your brain. So you're really solving the problems, not just taking anti-anxiety medication for 20 years, you know? So that's also what I'm trying to convey in this public speaking context. It's really, and I write a lot as well. It's really about, you know, how can you have the same results of lowering your anxiety, but not because you're taking medication, but because you're solving the root cause problem of your anxiety. So that's a lot of what I'm doing right now. It's very cool, very fulfilling. Yeah.
Nice. So talk to me about how psychedelics differ in getting to the root cause versus typical pharmaceuticals that are and self-proclaiming to kind of mask the issue, right? It's like if you had pain and you take a painkiller, it's numbing the pain in that it's not taking away the thing that's causing the pain. So if you had a sliver and you take a painkiller, it'll take the pain away, but you're not actually pulling the sliver out. So that's the difference that we're kind of talking about here. And psychedelics is an interesting field in that there's a lot of different medicines that fall into that category, and they differ in how they treat the body and what's going on. So take that anywhere you want.
Yeah.
28 questions in there.
yes, which is great. So I take psilocybin, so magic mushroom. So it's plant-based, obviously it's mushrooms. So it's kind of natural. To your point, psychedelics, that could be LSD, that can be MDMA. And right now you have a lot of clinical trials that are happening and a lot of companies that have been started actually in Canada, in the US, in Europe, mostly the UK, to really harness the power of psychedelics. And to your point, the value of this medicine is that, you know, based on neuroplasticity, your brain basically rewires itself. So if anxiety was one of the illness to treat, which was my case, and still to some degree, instead of taking a medication that's going to make me feel less anxious, but to your point, it's not solving anything, because the second I stop the medication, I'm back, I'm back where I was, you know. Here, what it does is that it really not only calm my nervous system, but also creates new connections that will help me not to feel anxious in the same situation anymore. So I tend to combine psychedelics with other modality. I do a lot of tapping, meditation, this type of things, because I really want to amplify the rewiring and make sure the rewiring is going in the direction I want, you know, yep. Which is, you know, more feeling of freedom, more feeling of confidence. And I'm so happy. I know your audience is mainly entrepreneur. You know, you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. I used to be a venture capitalist, so I was working with entrepreneurs all day long. And very often we tend to spend a lot of time, money, effort on building the business. You're going to invest in marketing, you're going to invest in developing new offering, all that stuff. But the most important thing to invest in is us, you know, because we, you know, if we're not there, there is no business, you know. And if your mental health or your physical health, for that matter, they're very linked, are not optimal, you know, whatever you're going to spend on your business is not really going to make a huge difference, because you're not capable yourself of being at the top of your game. So I think there is a body of work that has not helped us coming from San Francisco, this hustle mentality, which doesn't really take into consideration the fact that you can only hustle for a very short period of time.
You can only wait, sorry?
Hustle, you know, like work, 20 hours a day, and, you know, like this glorification of being always working and always hustling. And I think the big value that most entrepreneurs will have is in feeling better, feeling more confident, feeling less anxious. And a lot of us don't even realize we're anxious, because we've been anxious for so long. We think it's the way we are. And you're laughing, so I guess that's something that resonates with you too.
Well, yeah, and it's, well, so I was, I ran a company called Success Therapy for 10 years and worked specifically with entrepreneurs and helping them to get to the root cause of what was stopping them. And I think that a lot of them don't recognize, because we get stuck in our own way of doing things, right? So, and we say things like, you know how when you do this, this happens. And it's like, no, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. That's your experience. It's not my experience of that.
Yes,
in fact,
exactly.
That's never happened to me before. So no, I don't know how that works. And I think we look at kind of therapies as, I have to have had a traumatic childhood in order to have therapy issues. And it's like, no, it can be anything from, you know, the stress that we get when a client is done their contract and they move on. And it could be, oh my God, I finally got them to where I want them to. Now I have to go and deal with new clients, and I have to do the whole onboarding thing and get them used to how we do things and that thing. Or it can be, you know, are the checks coming in on a regular basis? It can be, you know, blushing in meetings. It can be sweating on stage. It can be like so many things that just seem normal, which they are. And yet a lot of people just go, well, I just have to live with that, don't I? No,
exactly.
No, you don't.
Exactly.
It's normal, but you don't have to deal with it.
I love that you're saying that, Michelle. And, you know, it's funny, I published a newsletter 2 days ago, and I'm exactly referring to that. I say, for me, it was the normal way of operating. And it's not that it's abnormal. It's just that I don't have to live with that. I can choose a different path.
Nice.
You know, that will be way more pleasant. As an entrepreneur, it's a very, very hard life. To your point, you know, like on one end, you're selling while executing at the same time, trying to make sure everything is running smoothly, managing employees if you have employees and all that thing. It's extremely, extremely difficult. And as long as you don't have enough critical mass, you're doing so much yourself that you need to be the marketing person, the HR person, the sales person, the person that's delivering, let's do the social media as well, and all that great stuff. And you're never finished.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, to your point, is we all had been contaminated, and I'm air quoting for people who are listening, by some limiting belief that came from our parents, not because they were mean, but just because they believe that themselves, school, society, da, da, da. And to your point is we're operating under some assumptions that maybe were true 50 years ago. Maybe they were never true anyway. And we're still using that as a way to run our business. Mm-hmm. One thing that I believe very strongly is questioning everything, and every day do something slightly different, because otherwise you're on autopilot. And if you're always doing the same thing, you're always going to get the same result. So if you want to grow your business, if you want to change, you know, it's soon is the new year, we're all going to have your new year resolution. If we need to do something different. You cannot make the same decisions over again and expect a different results, but we tend to do that.
Absolutely, we do. And I think too, our ability to be able to kind of think with our executive functions of our brain, it becomes so, I don't want to say innocent, and so kind of, it just kind of like a veil that we don't even notice, that our beliefs start kicking in and taking over, and we're not really functioning with clarity of thought of, you know, how do I deal with this? It's how have I dealt with this in the past? Exactly. And then we make our judgments from that position, which is not executive functioning. It's not thinking. It's just relying on our past way of dealing with situations.
Exactly. And the thing I love with psychedelics is that not only it removes an edge of your nervous system, so you're not always reacting, you know, so it gives you that few seconds where you can stop yourself and make another decision. You know, even first you need to be aware that, you know, there is a decision to be made. Am I losing my mind because someone told me that, and in the past I was always losing my mind? Or do I take a step back and realize that, oh, maybe today I can make a different choice, you know? And also taking psychedelics, what I love is it kind of open up to more possibilities, things you might not have thought about, because it's the creative aspect of it. So it opens up to more options. And to your point with changing the decisions we make, very often we make the same decisions because we don't think there are other options. You know, we're coming from a very limited view, maybe fear-based view, while actually psychedelics make you probably more relaxed. And so now you can look at, oh, maybe that option, I never thought about it, maybe that can work. Or, oh, well, why don't I try that again, but differently this time? Or maybe it didn't work a year and a half ago because we were in the middle of a pandemic and now life is different. So maybe it's worthwhile to retest all that we've done in the past and might not be working. So, you know, I think constantly adjusting our beliefs and our actions as an entrepreneur is extremely important. Otherwise, very fast, it just becomes a drag. You know, like you're on this treadmill, you're not even enjoying what you're doing, and you're just running after your business. You're not leading the business.
Love that. So can you give us an example of a Cinderella story of one of your clients?
Well, I have a Cinderella story from literally a couple of days ago, and it's a person. I don't really work with individuals. I like better working with organization, but sometimes I do work with individuals just because I know them and some specific reason. And she ended up being in a situation where she was a lawyer in a practice, lawyer for deal transactions. Right now, deal transactions not working very well, and she happened to add a baby during the pandemic. If you work at a big law firm, people's going to be pretty straightforward with you that having a baby and having a career is not a very good idea. I know we're in 2022, but you'd be surprised what people will tell you. And so she was told a couple of years ago when she got her daughter that maybe that's not a great idea, but she still got her daughter. And yes, but when she came back to work, all her clients were basically given to our colleagues when she was away, and she came back to nothing. So she had to rebuild her practice. And at the time, there was a lot of activities on the West Coast. So that poor lady, she had to work Toronto and Vancouver hours, and so it was very, very difficult. But the challenge is that, to your point, she thought it was the way it was. She thought that if you work in a private practice, if you want to be a successful lawyer, that's what I have to deal with. And there is no other choice. What we've been able to work together was for her to understand that you can build your own, I won't say kingdom, that sounds very negative, but your own reality kind of, and play in the parameter of that organization, but at the same time, adjust it for you as much as you can. But then if it's not working, you can go elsewhere. You can move very often, and I'm sure you've seen it in your past life or maybe for yourself. We get so much in fear that we are not capable of taking a step back and thinking, that doesn't make any sense. I'm wasting my time there. Let's cut my losses and go elsewhere, where people will be extremely thankful to have someone like me. So she finally left that organization. She even got a package because, there was some type of cost cutting happening in the organization. So everyone was happy to part ways. She has a new job in another large organization, got a signing bonus, way more flexibility. And the most important thing is that instead of feeling guilty and ashamed, which she felt that it was her fault, she realized that, well, actually, no, I was not treated well, and I have a better option now. So I think that there is nothing that, when you work with clients that they don't know already. It's just so difficult because we feel, and I've been in situations like that, we feel powerless, we think like victims, and we don't feel capable of taking back our power. And again, as entrepreneur, that's something that's the most important for us, is to realize that we are the one driving the bus. The business is an entity, is an extension of ourselves. I have, again, still a lot of entrepreneur friends. And sometimes the smart decision is to close that business and do something else. It's not failure. People keep thinking about that as if it's failure. You need to persevere. At some point, perseverance is not the right decision to make, Right. And I'd love to hear you. I see you're nodding. So I'm not sure what's your perspective on that, but I think it's important sometimes to call it quit. It's winning. Winning sometimes is leaving the game, is not staying in the game.
Absolutely. And I think it's the fear kicks in of the unknown, which is totally, yes, again, normal. And we start to go, but I don't know, which blocks creativity 100%. Like, even if you're calm and relaxed and you keep telling yourself, I don't know, you're not going to be creative. It's why in a brainstorming activity within a team, right, it always has to be yes and yes and yes and yes and that's great idea, awesome, we're going to write that down. Yep, getting squirrels to run the marketing department is an awesome idea, we're going to keep doing that. Yep. And just, you got to keep that up. And when we get into a room with me, myself, and I, that teamwork is, when somebody's going, no, that's not going to work, it just shuts down the whole team. And we need to be able to break into that creativity. And sometimes it's a lot harder to do it. And with something like this, just allows that for that opportunity to open up.
Yeah, and one thing as well, you mentioned earlier, childhood trauma and things like that. One of the things is familiarity. Mm-hmm. So if you are familiar with patterns that are unhealthy for you, you will still constantly go towards this pattern. And that's something very, very important for anyone, but especially for entrepreneurs. If you were in a situation where in your childhood, everyone in their childhood has to trade off who they really are to please their caregivers. It's just, unfortunately, unconditional love doesn't really apply, and you end up having to trade off a lot of your authentic self for that. That happens, that's the reality. But some people got in situations that were a bit less supportive. So, for example, I went to a very Catholic school from the age of 2 years old to the age of 24 years old. So I did my entire, education in a very religious education system. And it's not that the people were bad people, but you get a lot of limiting belief, especially being a woman born in the 70s in a Catholic environment. You're not really told you're going to run the world, let's put it that way, And but these are patterns that are very familiar. So if you've been used to a parent that was maybe invalidating you, or a brother that might have been, ruining more or less your self-confidence, or you were told, you should not be seen or you shouldn't be heard. All of that's going to create a lot of challenges for you as an entrepreneur, because you're going to constantly fight this belief you have about yourself that are absolutely wrong and that you might not even know you have. Mm-hmm. You might think that you're very self-confident, but the anxiety you have comes from that tug of war of deep down, Mama was not very thinking I was amazing, but you're amazing, but it keeps like pulling you in that direction, hence the internal turmoil and the anxiety. And I think everyone, especially entrepreneur, will learn and benefit a lot by doing some soul searching, because that would actually benefit their business way more to remove resistance and limiting belief than to add more training, add more work, add more marketing dollar. You know what I mean? If you're running a marathon, what's going to really help you? Removing the 10 pounds weight that are attached to your ankles, or training more? Well, obviously removing the 10 pounds, but we don't do that. And that's, I think that's important for entrepreneurs to even think about that.
Nice. Well, we will have to have another conversation one day about all of the impacts, because I've noticed in my experience that little kids have a certain personality up until about the age of 7 or 9 or so, the age of reason, and then all of a sudden they become somebody different that tends to kind of shape their entire adult lives. And I want to go back and study that immensely, because I don't think it's just a matter of kind of growing out of it, the conditioning and the growing out of it. And, how do we get back into that spunky, creative personality? Because, you can't look around and see anybody under the age of 7 that doesn't have personality. You can walk into any classroom and say, that kid does that, and that kid does that, and that kid, like, they all exude personality in that age group. And then, and they exude typically a different personality after that, if they exude that personality. So I'd love to, we'll have that conversation another day, but right now, let's go back to kind of these stumbling blocks that are people are facing in their businesses. We've gone over a ton of them. So I know that our listeners are going to want more from you. How did they start their journey with you?
Well, it's a couple of things, and they can start the journey by themselves. They don't necessarily need to be supported by someone. It helps, as you know, more.
Yeah, but they're going to want questions with you. So maybe the journey was the wrong word because it implied something else. How did they get to talk to you and get to know you better?
So I'm on social media. I have a newsletter where actually next week I'm publishing New Year, New You, meaning your authentic you. And I'm gonna go through, okay, how can you start releasing these beliefs that are really not helping you, you know, like self-criticism, self-judgment. I think that's really if you do one thing in your life that's going to change your life, is start to love yourself more.
Absolutely.
You know, and most of the people, and I include myself in that, for the longest time, I didn't even realize that I was constantly berating myself and constantly judging, criticizing when it wasn't laughing and hating myself. And it's impossible to go and meet a client and sell him or her your services when yourself you're thinking you're shit, when you're thinking your offering is not good enough because you are not good enough. Or could you offer something valuable if you're already not good enough? So you know, like, even if you don't want to go into any of childhood trauma and very complex work, just improve your self-love. So improving your self-love can come in multiple ways. I don't think that, you know, you're going to improve your self-love just by doing yoga every day. I think self-care is super important. I just don't think that it's enough. So I use a lot of tapping meditation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that modality. It's extremely easy. You can work with practitioner, but you can literally go on YouTube and have free videos. So it doesn't even have to cost you a lot of money. And you can just start, you know, pick, don't feel good enough, or judgment, self-criticism. Just start spending 10 minutes a day just on tapping on this belief that are really blocking you to be your best self. And that already is going to help you. I'm a big proponent of psychedelics to augment that. We're lucky in Canada because it's decriminalized. So it's very easy. I buy literally my mushrooms at my massage therapist. I don't know where it is in Calgary, but in Toronto, it's very easy. So if you were to do like a little bit of psychedelics, little bit of tapping every day, in a year, you're already way better off where you are. After, if like me, you're very, very dedicated and you really want to, or maybe you have more baggage, you can look at it both. Maybe like me, you have a lot of baggage, so you have to put a lot of work. You know, I also do meditation. I do a full array of practices. And again, I'm going to go through all of that in my newsletter week by week. I will show people what they can do. I love to work with people, but I like better teach them how to do that themselves. Simply because we don't all have the budget financially to work with a coach. Not that I think I'm a coach, but, you know, to work with someone, we don't always have the time. Here, if you know how to do it yourself, more power to you, and then you can teach your kids, then you can teach your sister, your brother, and then, you know, like, we change the world.
Nice. I love it. So I get to ask you, at what point in life did you know that you were a special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
You know what? It's very funny when you talk about limiting belief. For the longest time, I thought I was not capable of being an entrepreneur. I always thought of myself as a strong second. I could never, so everyone was betting on myself but me. So, you know, that's that distortion of perception
Mhm.
where people think you can do great, but you think you suck, so it took me a while to go in that direction. I was working for a large bank, and I had multiple opportunities to join a venture capital fund. So I resigned from that bank with the idea of, okay, well, I'm going to do mandates, and then I'm going to join eventually one of these firms. And actually, I never did, and I stayed independent. So it was not, okay, I'm great enough or crazy enough, and I'm going to bet on myself and become an entrepreneur. It came from a different way. I don't think I would have had enough self-confidence and self-love to actually bet on myself and be an entrepreneur, to be honest with you.
Well, we're glad you did. We're glad you made the leap.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, as entrepreneur, we make a lot of difference in the world. And the challenge is very often we think we only make a difference if, okay, you're running Google, you invented, Tesla or whatever. It's not true. Like every life we touch, we make a big difference. And as an entrepreneur of a smaller business, you're touching the life of people way deeper. And the challenge is this reality we're living in, where success is the money you're making, success is the number of clients you're having, success is how big you are. I think success is what is the difference you made, and the difference you made is not necessarily based on how big is your top line, and I think it's important for us to remember that, and it keeps us motivated as well.
I love it. Peggy, you have been absolutely awesome. Any last words for our peeps?
No, first, it was super lovely. If anyone has any questions related to psychedelics or related to, again, this quest towards your authentic self, I'm always happy to exchange. I think the message I really want to tell people is, if you were to allocate maybe just a small part of the resources you're allocating today to grow your business, I would say in the physical world, and you're allocating that towards your own personal growth, you will probably see better results. I think that's probably the message I want to give.
I love it. You have been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I know how valuable it is.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Have a great day.
Okay. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedlak. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share with your friends. We love helping entrepreneurs grow.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.